The meeting will come to order. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Melody?
Here.
Mr. Weininger?
Here.
Mrs. May?
Here.
And Mr. Valentine.
Here. Pledge of Allegiance for this evening. Mr. Allring, will you please lead us? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Approval of the agenda for this evening's meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Weininger. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Mr. Melody. Questions or comments? As I told the board prior to the meeting, we have moved up the HR agenda to number 3. There will be executive session on the tail end of the meeting as well, with no action coming out of executive session. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Weininger?
Yes.
Mr. Melody?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Present and yes.
Mrs. May?
Yes.
And Mr. Valentine.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Valentine. Good evening, everyone. It is our pleasure tonight to recognize some state champions from Dublin Kaufman. And I'd like to introduce Dublin Kaufman Principal Mike Allring.
Thank you, Board of Education, Dr. Lucas, especially thank you, Mr. Valentine, for that. I would like to introduce first our athletic director here. Our state swim team has been so much fun this last couple years, and it was really sad not to be able to go to Canton this year and watch them. I got to go last year when the whole team won, the girls won the state championship, and I've been to a lot of sporting events in school, and I'd say that might be the absolute best event I've ever attended in my life. It's so much fun to watch and be in that environment. So we're so proud of everyone here tonight, and you'll get to meet them, and we'll get to recognize them. So I just wanted to say that and congratulate them personally, and I will when they come up. But Mr. Sheldon, our athletic director, is going to take it over from here.
It's great to be here, folks. As Mr. Allring mentioned, last year this time, I think we were planning on honoring that state championship swim team, but we had the pandemic kind of move up on us, and it's just great to even see people here that are present for these meetings. I'd like to echo what Mr. Allring said about that team. This year we didn't win the team state championship, but last year was an unbelievable experience. And then what happened this year individually for the people standing behind me, even more impressive. I was going to talk a little bit about them, and then I thought, I'm trying to find information about them and all this, and then the head coach, Steve Von Schriltz, is here, and I said, you're gonna talk about each one of them. We'll present the award to them as they come up. So, Steve, come on up here.
Right.
We'll present it as you talk.
Okay. I'm going to thank you for honoring the kids. There's a reason these 3 are up here, is they work extremely hard. They're super dedicated to their sport. They just came from practice. I'm not even sure they have dinner yet, but they rushed home to get ready from this. So first person I'm going to honor is our only senior here is Ellie Andrews. She's won the 100 breast and was second to 2IM this year. She's had 4 state championships in her career and 3 runners-up. She's also a member of the U.S. Junior National Team and will compete in Omaha for in the Olympic trials this year. It'll be her second trial. She actually went in 2016 also at 13 years old, so congratulations. Next is Zach Stump, Jr. He is our first male swimmer to win a state championship at Kaufman. He won the 500 free. He went from last year, I think he finished 17th in the 500 to this year winning it. So it's massive improvement. And he's also going to Omaha in the Olympic trials this summer. Congratulations. And our freshman, Emily Brown. Emily is going to follow in Ellie's footsteps. I was glad she got to spend a year with Ellie in training, and especially the dry land, and see what it takes to be a state champion. And she won the 200 and the 500 free this year, and probably could have won the 50 and the 100 if she was allowed, but great job.
Thank you.
Thanks again, guys. Just to speak real quick on the dedication, I think you guys were in the pool at what time this morning?
We were 5:30 this morning in the pool and later this afternoon.
Okay, so he's not lying. That get them food, and it's probably their bedtime right now. They got to get back 'cause they're going to start the whole thing over. But thanks again.
For the folks who are here for the swimming awards, you are free to leave if you need to. We'll give you a quick break here before we get started on our next item. All right. Department of Human Resources, Mr. Marsh.
Good evening. Have a few items I'd like to highlight on the certified and classified agenda this evening, and I'll save a special one for the end of my highlights. On the certified agenda tonight, you'll see a couple items of note. First, item 3 is the non-renewal of replacement contracts. This is an annual process that we have just 3 folks. Their teaching contracts will be non-renewed. They're folks that have we're filling in for teachers that are on leave of absence this year. So those folks will be evaluated and potentially could join us in another position, but they were on replacement contracts this year. Also, item 4, this is the beginning of what I call the spring hiring season for the next school year. We have 2 outstanding educators, Brett Glass and Jaron Stokes, that will be joining us, and that is just the beginning of the hiring of the teachers for this next school year. Should note that our building principals are working extremely hard right now, beginning the interview process. We've established what openings we have for next year, and they are very busy at that process to get the very best educators, and that's the time of year to do that early as we are in competition with other districts. Also, you'll notice there's 1 stipend for your approval tonight. That's an academic stipend. It's a professional development stipend. There is an EL Institute for Culturally Responsive Teaching that occurred, and we would ask for your approval for the staff member that conducted that training. On the classified agenda tonight, just 1 retirement that I'd like to note. Christina Traylor is a clinic aide at Carr, and she will be retiring with 15 years of service to the district. We appreciate very much the work that she's done for our community. You'll note Bert Dowden is on there again. That's just a slight change in his retirement date. It originally was May 28th, and he's adjusted that till May 31st. And then the real highlight tonight, at least for me, is the recommendation to you for our first Eversole Run middle school principal. We're recommending Dr. Kyle Gibson as our new principal. Really excited to be able to ask you to approve Dr. Gibson's contract as the new leader of Eversole Run Middle School. I'd also like to thank the parents, the teachers, staff, and administrators that played a key role in that process, looking at lots of really good candidates, and Dr. Gibson rose to the top of that pool. That is all I have for you tonight. Exciting agenda.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Melody, second by Mr. Harris for items 4A through 4C. We'll call you up in here in a second, Dr. Gibson. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Melody?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Weininger?
Yes.
Mrs. May?
Yes.
And Mr. Valentine?
Yes, motion passes 5-0.
It is my pleasure now to introduce Dr. Kyle Gibson, and I've asked Dr. Gibson to come up and say a few words and also to introduce his family to us. So I present to you Dr. Kyle Gibson.
Thank you, Board of Education and Dr. Lucas, for this opportunity to lead Eversole Run Middle School. I'm very excited for the opportunity. I'm excited to work with the staff, the students, and the community members. This is something that I've been looking forward to. I'm ready to hit the ground running. With me tonight is my great family. I have my wife, Jacqueline Gibson, my son, Grant Gibson, my daughter, Kylie Gibson, and my son who's hiding back there, Kyle Gibson. And again, I'm looking forward to the opportunity, and thank you again. Thank you.
You have a beautiful family.
All right. With that said, we are to public participation. Before we get started with that, wait 1 second here. Thank you. Before we begin our public participation for this evening's board meeting, I want to take a moment to review our board policy on public participation, which has been in place in its current form since December 2018. As a board, we recognize the value public comment has on school governance and educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. This is why we welcome public participation at each and every board meeting. We are also committed to conducting our meetings in a productive and efficient manner that allows fair expression of comments. Our board policy expressly states that the following rules that guide us in these commitments, and there are a few I believe that are important to mention now. 1, public speakers are required to register in advance and are required to begin their statement by announcing their name, address. Each statement is limited to 3 minutes. Comments that are frivolous, repetitive, or harassing may be prohibited or stopped. And lastly, comments that are abusive, off-topic, obscene, or irrelevant will be prohibited. With that said, the first speaker this evening, Ms. Sheen.
Hello, my name is Erin Sheen. I live at 7418 Coventry Woods Drive. With over 20 years of recruiting experience, this topic is near and dear to my heart. I'm here to ask you tonight to slow down your hiring process for our new superintendent and loop in your community so that we feel comfortable that a diverse slate of candidates has been considered versus what seems to be zeroing in on one candidate who may well be exceptional, yet how do we know they are the best fit if they are the only candidate? Over 350 community members have signed a petition in the past few days indicating concern in the lack of transparency with this seemingly rushed process. The things we want to know are, did you interview several search firms before choosing K through 12? Did the search firm present a diverse slate of candidates? What sets your finalist apart from the rest? How long was the role posted, and how many finalists were interviewed? What community members took part in the interviews? As a concerned community member, I can answer none of these questions after combing through the boards and meeting minutes and conducting Google searches. However, during my searches, other Ohio districts' search processes came up to identify their superintendents. And they have things posted including press releases, the names and backgrounds of their finalist candidates, focus group meetings, etc. And I thought to myself, yes, this is what Dublin should be doing. To see best practice examples, one need not look further than Bexley. They had a few missteps in the beginning and publicly admitted that they needed to do a better job in their search. And now they are. They have had community involved in choosing their search firm, which they narrowed down from 6 applicants, have conducted community polls and focus groups. Or look at Akron Public Schools, who has published news releases on all of their 8 finalists, narrowed down from 27 applicants, 2 of which are from other states. But we are being told that it takes too long for people from other states to obtain an Ohio license, which is why we should limit our pool of candidates to only those in Ohio. And we are being told the rush is due to the hiring season. Aren't Akron and Bexley in the same hiring season? Bexley is accepting applicants until mid-April, and they won't likely make a decision until May. What makes our decision such a rush? You mentioned that your chosen candidate's own timeline or other job offer is driving the frantic pace of the hiring decision, and I will tell you that in the recruiting world, we know this is typically a slippery slope. With hasty hiring decisions often comes hindsight that certain steps were missed. One thing is certain, we all want the same goal, to hire the right candidate for the superintendent role. And as of now, your community feels that the process has been rushed and we feel excluded from the process, which leaves us feeling concerned. I ask you to please hear our concerns that all qualified candidates are evaluated prior to making this important decision. We have all weathered a very challenging year together, and Dublin City Schools has incurred significant turnover at several high-level roles. We are a district that is, in the very least, in a major state of transition or perhaps in a state of turmoil. We need to get this hire right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Foster.
Hello, my name is Chrissy Foster. I live at 7516 Stone Lake Drive. Thank you for having me tonight. We, the residents of Dublin City Schools, demand that the Dublin City School Board of Education create a superintendent search hiring committee made up of Board of Education members and community members. Community representation should be diverse and include community members, students, parents, building, and central office leaders, teachers, and classified staff. Community representatives on the Superintendent Search Hiring Committee should be selected through a transparent and democratic process. We demand that the Dublin City School Board of Education publish the hiring process and timeline to the community. The superintendent position has not been sufficiently publicized, and our community deserves a search coordinated by an independent firm and a timeline that allows a diverse set of candidates to apply. The application deadline should be extended. The contract with the current search firm, K-12 Business Consulting, should be terminated, and a new search firm should be hired. Furthermore, we demand that the Dublin City Schools Board of Education publish the profiles of candidates and the names of candidates who are selected to advance in the process. Searches conducted behind closed doors promote this new superintendent as the board's superintendent, not the community's superintendent. In taking the stance that it knows the community's needs better than anyone else, the board forgets that the community owns the schools and should be involved and kept fully informed during its investment. Davis, 2021. The superintendent search process should be thorough and transparent, as Chris Valentine, our Board of Education president, promised in a statement to the media. Valentine said the district will begin the search for a new superintendent and will be transparent throughout the process and will involve parents, staff, and the community. On March 8th, 2021, the Dublin City School Board announced that it would move Superintendent Dr. Todd Hoadley to a different position and an interim superintendent would be put in place. On March 18th, the Dublin City School Board issued a contract to K-12 Business Consulting to conduct the superintendent search. The deadline for applications posted on the DCS website is March 21st, 2021. Applicants are directed to contact Chris Moore at K-12 Business Consulting, although K-12 is not publicizing the DCS superintendent position on their webpage. Chris Moore served as the Treasurer, CFO, and Executive Director of Business Affairs in Dublin City Schools from August 1993 to August 2007. Chris Moore, this is a quote, "Chris Moore and Dr. Fenner have divided the administration beyond repair," one board member wrote in Moore's evaluation. The DCS superintendent position is not posted on the Ohio Schools Boards Association superintendent page. To date, the DCS Board of Education has not published the hiring process or timeline. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Gevert.
My name is Michael Geffert, and I reside at 8331 Fig Grove Way. I am the father of 2 students who attend Abraham Depp Elementary. I am speaking today in opposition of the board's decision to rush the hiring of a new permanent superintendent. Let me first say that I am grateful to Dr. Lucas for coming out of retirement to become interim superintendent until a replacement is found. I believe that the board should retain Dr. Lucas or another interim superintendent if Dr. Lucas is unwilling to serve until after the November 2021 election, when 3 seats on this board will be up for elected. Hiring a superintendent is the single greatest impact the board has in determining the district's success, and I do not believe that this board is up to the challenge. I have 3 primary reasons for this belief. First, this board has demonstrated a contempt for transparency, and when it is forced to be transparent, that it is incapable of long-term strategic planning. Regardless of where one falls in the seriousness of the COVID pandemic, this board's decision-making process illuminated dysfunctional leadership. The board left much of its deliberative process in the hands of unelected committees who met in secret and weren't subject to Ohio sunshine laws. The process was anything but transparent. This board then adopted a color-coded decision-making chart for determining the level of in-school attendance during the pandemic. The public debate among the board as to the chart and its significant impact to the daily lives of tens of thousands of students lasted only a few minutes. Then the board simply abandoned the chart when it didn't like the outcome. As noted by Mr. Melody, we were still inside the guidelines for hybrid mode of attendance when the board made the decision for full return. And now the board has rushed through a superintendent process, welcoming public participation exclusively by individuals likely to go along with the board, and now the board appears to be ready to select a predetermined candidate. How can we trust the board to make the correct choice for superintendent when it operates almost entirely in the dark, and when it must operate in the light, shows it can't follow its own decision-making process? Second, this board has failed to safeguard taxpayer funds. This board signed Dr. Hoadley to a 4-year extension last February, and now has terminated that contract before the start date commenced. The board has offered no explanation as to why Dr. Hoadley has been retained in a role other than that for which he was hired, and why he is to receive a $500,000 golden parachute from district taxpayers to work 120 days a year in a job that has no clear responsibilities, yet alone clear necessity. If the board has an extra $125,000 a year to spend on salaries, I suggest that hiring 2 full-time intervention specialists to work with our most underserved and at-risk students is a far better use of the money and would have a far greater impact on student lives than retaining our former superintendent in a make-work job. Finally, and most alarmingly, this board has failed at its most basic responsibility, protecting students. This board failed to protect students when it allowed Greg Lee to remain employed for over a decade after it first learned of Lee's improper conduct towards female students. Under pressure from the community after Lee's arrest, the board decided in 2019 to release records surrounding its decision not to terminate Lee on the advice of its legal counsel.
You have 10 seconds left.
The voters and not legal counsel have the final say in determining whether the board acted properly. 3 members of this board, last elected in 2017, have yet to face the voters on this issue.
Please finish your comments.
In closing, I have no confidence in this board's ability to select a replacement superintendent. We desperately need new leadership, and our voices should be heard at the ballot box prior to the board making commitments that outlast its current members' tenure.
Thank you. Dr. Lucas, work session topics, Tolles Career Center.
We did receive word today that Tom Ireland could not make the meeting, so obviously I'm going to make this part short and sweet. You have the attachment of the Tolles Career and Technical School there on the agenda. I guess the highlight of that would be the total enrollment is 661 down 1. They have started applications for this year, and they're at 535, and 431 of those have been accepted. So you probably also heard as early, I believe it was Friday, that Amy Beeson stepped down as the superintendent, and the deputy superintendent there also took the Delaware Area Career Center job. So they are in the process of filling 2 vital positions, and obviously that will, I'm sure we'll get updated on that as that goes along. So that is the report for Tolles.
All right. Board of Education comments. I've got a few things that I want to say, but before I do that, give everybody a chance to talk. All right. Obviously, as we engage in the search process, it's going to continue to be a hot topic for our community. I think that everybody sitting around this room, this table, understands that. 2 weeks ago, the board and Dr. Hoadley announced that there would be a change in the superintendency for next school year. As you're elected, and I want to say that again, you're elected Board of Education, all 5 of us recognize the significance of this role and the impact that it has on our students, staff, the Dublin community, and even beyond. We got to work immediately and are working with a large and diverse group of internal and external advisors to help in the process. We have a representative group of Dublin City School staff and administrators, union representation, and parent and community representatives that will all have an important voice in this process. Our Deputy Superintendent and Human Resources Office has been working to select those individuals for us. I'm going to say that one more time for the public. Our Deputy Superintendent and Human Resource Office has been working to select those individuals for us. This is not some handpicked group by the Board of Education. And we appreciate all that they are doing to make sure that we have a diverse group of individuals to review our candidates for superintendent. This will be, in fact, the largest group of staff and community that have been a part of the superintendent search interview process. The committees of parent groups include our key communicators, PTO presidents, representatives from the district's Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, representatives from the City of Dublin, including the city manager, the mayor, and another member of City Council who serves as their liaison to the school district, and the Dublin Chamber of Commerce. In addition, we have representatives from our Business Advisory Council who are also involved in this process. Our staff interview groups include both the teachers and classified union presidents, as well as 7 other union representatives chosen by the DEA and DSA, principals, HR, our executive director of student services and special education, both directors of elementary and secondary education, and others. The board and staff are committed to continuing and improving upon Dublin's educational excellence, focusing on literacy and growing our students to be the best that they can be. Staff representatives on the DEI committee will be interviewing superintendent candidates as well. We expect all involved in the interview process to hold us accountable to these important goals in choosing the district's next educational leader. It's important to this Board of Education that our next superintendent has a history of supporting DEI initiatives and will commit to bringing that priority to Dublin City Schools. There's always room for improvement. We're committed to doing just that. That's why the board is hiring a director of diversity, equity, and inclusion to join our central office. The new superintendent will work closely with that DEI director, and we're excited for what the next years will bring for our district. We have a lot of work to do in the coming weeks, there's no doubt about it. Many of you may be interested in helping us with the process of hiring and then introducing our new leader to Dublin City Schools. There are many parts of that process, and we welcome your involvement. Please send an email to our Public Information Officer, Mr. Doug Baker. We want a wide variety of people involved in the work to come, and we thank you for your continued support of Dublin City Schools. All right, moving on to Board of Education comments, approvals. We have the approval to rename Kaufman High School baseball field. It's recommended by the Board of Education that the Dublin Kaufman High School baseball field be renamed in the honor of Mr. Tim Saunders per Board Policy 7250. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Harris. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. May. Questions, comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mrs. May?
Yes.
Mr. Melody?
Yes.
Mr. Weininger?
Yes.
And Mr. Valentine.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Dr. Lucas.
Well, it gives me great pleasure, first of all, to have a few comments regarding this first week. I think, as you saw on my update, it was a great week, and I just want to kind of quickly highlight some of those. Some of that update. First and foremost, I want to thank the board, and I want to thank the staff for making me feel welcome. From the first day I pulled in here, it's been nothing but positive, and I truly appreciate the outpouring of support. As you saw on the update, I've already visited Kaufman, Jerome, and Scioto High Schools. I visited Bailey Elementary, I will begin the middle school visits this week and hopefully eventually not only visit all those middle schools, but also get to all those elementaries. But probably one of the highlights of the week actually happened, Thursday evening when I had the opportunity to work with not only staff members but community members as part of the Data Metric COVID Committee. And I think I've made this comment, but I'll say it again. Sometimes you don't see the forest for the trees when you have a tremendous amount of resources, but this community, this school system is extremely lucky, extremely fortunate to have individuals out there that are willing to put forth their time, their efforts, and most importantly, their expertise in regard to this most important issue. And it was an absolute pleasure to sit back and just listen and take in all the intelligence. You had an economics professor, for example, that had the ability to not only reference the 3 feet versus 6 feet research, but pick up the phone and call the two individuals that actually did the research. That doesn't happen very many places. That just doesn't happen very many places. And what's the bottom line for the school system? Safety for kids and staff. That's the bottom line for school systems. And I think, as I told you, we were highlighted in the Central Ohio area for the model that has been put forth. That didn't happen overnight. Took a lot of planning, took a lot of work, and it was just a pleasure to watch it. So I think that was a highlight of my week. But the biggest highlight, if you're in this business, is tonight you saw the student athletes. I've been to the buildings to see the students, the excitement, the fact that staff members play a major role in the lives of all the kids that come through those doors. I've been out of this business for 6 years, and just that little bit of time was worth the time coming back. Staff did great. It's very evident that students love their teachers, and that's what makes school systems successful. So I would say to all of you, great job. You have a fantastic school system here, and I would continue to encourage staff, students, parents to continue to support it, and it's going to be positive. So thank you for the week, and I look forward to the next few weeks coming up.
Thank you, Dr. Lucas. Reports from the Treasurer's Office. Mr. Kern.
Well, I don't have as exciting stuff as Dr. Lucas does, but I'm used to that, following him with that. So just a few things on the agenda for this evening. We do have the approval of the annual Meta agreement. I did note in the update, all the prices remained the same except for IEP Anywhere went up slightly from compared to last year. We do have approval of a bond resolution this evening for 2 different issues to be able to refund. One, with both combined, we're looking at about a $950,000 savings to our taxpayers, and we like the opportunities to do that anytime we can to be responsible and accountable to our taxpayers. And we have the approval of the financial report for February. As you can see, we are in line with estimates for the year. I will say, I mentioned this in my update, Delaware County and Franklin County have now settled. We're still waiting on Union County as we look at our estimates, as over 80% of our funding comes from local real estate taxes. We got 2 transfers this evening. This is just a cleanup. Jerome class of 19 and 20, and they moved that to class of 2021. And a couple donations, especially at Depp and Riverside, for some outside landscaping from their PTOs, and also the Dublin AM Rotary subscriptions to Hopewell Elementary. So we are always appreciative of our community members and our PTOs who donate to our schools. Any questions on anything? If there's there's no questions, I'd like to recommend approval of items 9B through 9F this evening.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. May,
Second.
second by Mr. Harris. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. May,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Melody,
Yes.
Mr. Weiniger,
Yes.
and Mr. Valentine.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Reports from the Department of Operations. Mr. Stark.
Good evening, everyone. We have a few items on board tonight. The first one is the approval for a Union County School Resource Director, or Resource Officer. This is huge kudos goes out to Chuck Collier for this. In his role as District Safety and Security Coordinator, he's pulled together this agreement. It's two agreements. I put them both in my update. One is a financial agreement, and one is a scope agreement. And it's worked out real well because we're splitting the costs between Union County, Jerome Township, and the school district. So the school district picks up about half of it, and the other half goes there. So great work by Chuck. This will be our first agreement with Union County for an SRO, and this will be for Abraham Depp and Eversole Run. The next item we have is for Kaufman High School. We're recommending to award Kramer Engineer a contract worth $24,450 to design and construct a set of new boilers in the 1972 section of Kaufman. They have 3 boilers there that are at the end of life. We're replacing them with 2 boilers. It's quite a bit of work to go from 3 to 2, but at the end of the day, this will not only be more efficient to run, it'll lower maintenance costs, and our public bid for that will probably go out in about 3 to 4 weeks from now. And lastly, and there's a handful here, this is with the City of Dublin. It's a series of easements. So, you know, the new OSU medical facility that's being built right across from our operations center is going to cause a new boulevard, a university boulevard to be built. And for that to be built, a series of easements has to be made, and our entrances will change over at Shire Rings. So the way that not only employees get in, but how our buses get in and out. So we've been working with the city, I'd say close to 8 to 10 months on this, getting all this. There's a lot of legal piece here. There's a conservation easement here, quite a bit here. We'll be getting also a new entrance for buses, for about 25% of our buses that go to the northwest. We'll be sharing a lot with the city. So it's a very collaborative agreement with the city. It's going to really make a change there. But these easements are all in line now, and it should be all in place.
This is a little bit off topic, but are they expanding Shire Rings as a part of this?
No, Shire Rings will actually not be expanded. University Boulevard is going to be like the new Shire
that'll
Rings.
Be the main, okay.
So they'll keep Shire Rings just for the neighborhoods.
Okay,
So it'll be cut off from the main roads. It'll be there just to get into like Ballantrae area. But
I've always wondered how our buses did going to the northwest there, because that's a tight road.
It is. So what we've negotiated with the city is we're right next door to them. And there's a road that's actually right south of us that's actually a district property that we gave an easement 20-so years ago to the city to use. We're now going to be using that road of ours, sharing it with the city, and using their parking lot to get around 25% of our buses out that artery. Because as I've shown you on some of the diagrams, there's going to be about 4 new roundabouts that we have to negotiate to get out, and this will help ease some of that. It'll be a different look in about 1.5 years.
Any questions? All right. There being none, it's recommended by the superintendent, the Board of Education approve items 11A, B, and C. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Harris. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Weiniger. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Weininger,
Yes.
Mr. Melody,
Yes.
Mrs. May,
Yes.
and Mr. Valentine.
Yes, motion passes
Thank you.
5-0. Future agenda items.
Just a quick note to everyone. Today I participated in the audit of the IB program. Wonderful event for me to participate in, and got some insights into the IB program and what some of the expectations are from the national organization. So if we could share, just how we do on the audit at some point, because they have to go and write it up and gather all the data and such. I'd appreciate that in a board meeting at some point.
All right.
Actually, I have something else for future agenda items. I am participating on the team that's speaking with Senator Coonsey in Senate District 16 for the Ohio Fair School Funding Plan. And I hope to bring a resolution to this board in support of that, and the superintendent and the treasurer. So maybe next meeting.
Sounds
Thanks.
good. Anything else from the left side of the room? All right. There being none, in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 121.22G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, the Dublin Board of Education will go into executive session to consider 1, the B, employment of a public employee or official. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Melody. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Harris. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Melody?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Weininger?
Yes.
Mrs. May?
Yes.
And Mr. Valentine?
Yes, motion passes 5-0. We will go into executive session, and there will be no action coming out of executive session. Thank you.